And welcome back. So Dr Annelie Lotriet has been elected the new Deputy Speaker from the Democratic Alliance. Of course, she says accepting different views from political parties in Parliament can go a long way in managing affairs, and she now joins us for more on this. Dr Lotriet, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for making time for us. Congratulations on your election. But for you personally, at a personal level, before we speak politics, what does it mean for you to become the first Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly who is a member of the Democratic Alliance since the dawn of our democracy?
Well, obviously, it's a great honor and privilege to be part of history. So I'm really grateful for that, because you do have people who have placed their trust in you. But I'm also quite aware of the responsibility that comes with it. So at this point, I think one is still busy digesting it, the extent and the scope, and perhaps later on, the full size and impact of what happened on Friday will sink in.
Yeah. And I believe that becoming a member of the Democratic Alliance, you bought into the values of the party and also what the party stood for. And in the party's campaign was also along the lines to unseat the ANC. Was it difficult for you at all to have a conversation where you have the party that you espouse to its values, having a conversation about going into a coalition with a party that you have been trying to unseat since the formation of the Democratic Alliance and even since the formation of its predecessor?
Yes, indeed. Look, I've been a member of the DA and serving as a public rep since 2000, so it's 24 years. So I'm very much steeped in the values and principles of the DA. But we also have to understand that politics is a very contested arena, and it develops, and as we've seen across the world, that coalitions are here to stay. The electorate are the people who have the decision, and they have indicated to us, this is what we want. So it is something that we now have the task of making work, and therefore getting together with people that you've always contested against, campaigned against, that's the reality that we now have to face. And I think it will all depend on the kind of maturity that we approach this whole process with, and the fact that we have the same end goal, and that is to make a better South Africa and to improve the lives of all South Africans. And with that, there's no difference between us.
Yeah. Do you fear at all, though, as the Democratic Alliance, that some of your voters might actually leave the party because of this decision that has been taken? And I'll also ask you on the basis of what happened back in 2016, when the DA then decided to work or not to accept the votes that came from the EFF, and essentially there was some sort of a working relationship. Some people were upset. We remember the report that came after the 2019 elections, and one of the reasons was because of that decision that was taken in 2016. Has the Federal Council reflected on what this could mean for the party and its constituents going forward into the next election, whether it is the local government election or the national election?
Yes, very much so. And I think this is why our federal leader, John Steenhuisen, already started with this whole process back in April last year, when he was elected at our Congress, where he announced this, what we then call the Moonshot Pact, which then evolved into the multi-party charter. So we were preparing the ground for a coalition-type arrangement after the election. So I think we've gave our voters sufficient time to come to terms with that. And if we look at 2016, and that is indeed an example of how a coalition doesn't work, because those we were voted in by the EFF wasn't a coalition. It was at that particular point the EFF deciding, well, they'll support us. But we all saw the kind of disruptions and unstable situations in municipalities that led to. And I think that is what the voters don't want. What they now want is a well thought through, well planned and negotiated agreement So I think there is a vast difference between 2016 and what we have on the table now.
Yeah. So with this one, at least there has been these negotiations that have been taking place. But when you read the principles of the GNU and also the framework that has been published, the document, it doesn't really speak to the agreement itself being binding on the members who are part of the Government of National Unity.
Well, I think what we have to understand that this was a statement of intent.
Yeah.
So this is a first step. The rest will now follow. So it's still a long process. We just had to get past this first line to make sure that, and we were time bound. As you know, we only had 2 weeks in terms of the Constitution, which is not ideal, definitely not ideal. So we had to go for the first thing that could be agreed upon, which was the statement of intent. And now the further arrangements and agreements will be refined and agreed upon. So we're still in for a few weeks, I think, of negotiation.
Yeah. Speaking about the declaration of intent, that's the same language that was used in the government in the multi-party charter. And if you look at Schedule 7 of the multi-party charter, again, declaration of intent, it says that, therefore, we will not entertain any working arrangement or co-governing agreement with the ANC, EFF, and any rival formation, which the Democratic Alliance, of course, has now gone against that. But that is as an individual party, but not as a multi-party charter. So as South Africans, what can we rely on that at some point during the next 5 years, the Democratic Alliance won't just walk away from this Government of National Unity and throw us into further turmoil?
Yes, I think what we have to understand as well with the multi-party charter is the fact that at that point it was a charter, an agreement up until the election. So there was an agreement on how we would approach the election, and then dependent on the outcome, parties could make their own decisions. Now, in this regard, we are now post the election. We are now in agreements with the ANC, originally ANC, IFP, and the president has made it open for other parties to also sign if they would like to. But I think in any agreement, there is always the chance that someone might decide they don't feel comfortable anymore and they go. So that might happen. But I think within the DA, our intent is to stay the course, because we started with this, not started, but I think we set the ground last year already for coalition. So our mindset is that we know this is the way to go. So one can never predict the future, but I can say, and I think I can speak on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, that we will do everything in our power to make this work, because our country cannot have more instability.
Does that include agreeing to the president appointing Deputy President Paul Mashatile as the Deputy President of the country? Because going into these talks as well, the DA had said that it doesn't want Paul Mashatile to be the Deputy President of the country. So does it mean that you've accepted that as a possibility?
At this point, we are open in the negotiations. One has certain things, pre-negotiations, that you say, well, we don't want this. But negotiations is a matter of give and take. Otherwise, it's not a negotiation. Then it's basically someone telling you what to do and what they accept and what not. But we have to give and take. And we have to look at the balance of, for example, the whole cabinet, the balance of the executive and the legislative. What is necessary to get everything over the line, and what will be in the interest of the country. So if the president, because Paul Mashatile is the deputy president of the ANC, and if the president decides, well, that is his preferred choice, because it is his choice for example, the leader of government and business, then we have to look at how we can balance that and the counterbalance in terms of keeping the executive to account. So that is how we will approach it, in making sure that there is sufficient accountability, because that's why we're in this thing, to not only be part of a legislative, rather the executive, but very much the legislative and accountability and oversight part.
So that means that if Paul Mashatile is included in President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet, the Democratic Alliance will accept that?
Yes, I think the reality is he is the Deputy President of the ANC. We still sit with the position of the Leader of Government and Business, which has traditionally gone to the Deputy President of the ANC, but it is not prescripted. So what we don't know, whether in the negotiations now in the next few weeks, whether the President decides to make a distinction and not follow the route as they always did. It could be someone else.
What's the DA's proposal when it comes to the business of government, the leader of government business?
I think it would be ideal if a member of the opposition could fulfill that particular role, because that is the person who will hold the executive to account. Because the Leader of Government and Business sees to it that ministers do their work, that they are accountable to Parliament, that they do attend to their questions, that they attend Parliament when required. So it is a very, very important oversight role.
All right. Finally, the letter that came from the EFF during the first sitting of the National Assembly, the Speaker said that she had not received the letter at the time. Have you now received this letter for the establishment of an impeachment committee into Phala?
Yes, we have. The EFF gave me a hard copy on Friday evening. Obviously, the Speaker and I will still have to have our first meeting where we will discuss it and look at the way forward. It is not a decision we'll just make on the fly. We will have to look at the constitutional requirements, the rules of Parliament, and decide according to that.
Yeah. Would you meet the DA caucus on that as well?
Well, we'll still have to work out our working relationship.